Hello adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am so excited to bring you along for a very special journey. We are in Alabama and we are going to go to a historic site today that is definitely something that popped up on my radar. This is a pretty expansive space, but we're about to go and explore the Tannehill Ironworks area. Now this is a state historic site that has a lot of buildings on property. They also offer camping and some really interesting brain wrinkles. So let's get out and start exploring. We are starting off at the Edwards House, which is also the park office right here as you come in the entry. They actually offer a few different pieces of information here, including the history of the Edwards House. Okay, so we went into the office and they actually have a visitor center, but we didn't realize that because we didn't have a map. But now we do, and we're about to drive over to this section right here to start off at the visitor center to get an idea of the property. But before we do, we're going to check out these buildings right here, which were original homes from the area. And each and every one of these is marked with a number that corresponds on our map up here and tells us a little bit more about the individual people. And it looks like there's a sign at each one, so we'll see if it tells us a little bit more about it. We're starting off at the Hogan House. This was built in 1834 and it was the pioneer home of Archibald Hogan and his family from Bibbville, Alabama. And we can walk up these stairs and get a closer look at the style of home that this is, which actually has this little dog run in between to help with being able to have some airflow. Now obviously throughout time some things have changed in the way of construction, so these have been rebuilt here on the property and they have some more modern things in them, including some very new windows on the front end of this. But the construction style is what we're looking at and we're seeing, and each of these is a little bit different, and it tells us a little bit about the people who might have lived there, including this next one, which has a really cool little piece of history that I can't wait to share with you. So we're gonna get to moving around some more of these and showing you some of the unique pieces of their history through their construction. This home right here is the Thompson home, and it was actually built on a piece of property that was originally a land grant that was signed by President Andrew Jackson. This was a gift to the Tannehill by B. Carter Thompson in 1974. Now another super useful piece of information to help you along the way learning a bit more about the history of these structures is this guide. This is actually George's At the Gate Guide to Tannehill, and we were given this by the man who actually is at the gate. And it talks a little bit more about all of the historic facts that you can find out just by traveling around and seeing each of those places. So the reason that you pick up the various guides is because they tell you a little bit more about the people. So the Thompson house that we were just looking at, for example, he actually served as a Confederate soldier, but he was captured in battle at the Battle of Lookout Mountain. And so without this guide, we would have only seen the cool structure, but diving a little bit deeper into the stories of the people, that's where you get to learn a little bit more about what was happening at the time, what the climate was politically, if there was anything going on when it came to the farming or even the war. And I think that that's what makes sites like these so fascinating, because a building is something you could see anywhere, but learning about the people who actually inhabited that building is something that you can only get at each respected spot. Something else I'm learning from this guide is some of these are actually rental cabins. So for example, the Peel House, the Nail House, and the Belcher House all have been renovated so you can stay in the historic structure. We start off here at the visitor center with something called the Big Seam, and this is a cross section of all the different things that you could actually find in the ground. And it says that Birmingham's iron and steel industry was built on this huge vein of iron. Now outside the visitor center you can find a series of different pieces kind of telling you a bit more about the iron industry and also all of the geological finds that they have. Okay, so inside they have a very extensive museum that has lots of context toward the iron ore that was actually in this area, and it's fascinating to see how that they're able to share how it was found, discovered, brought to, and used all within these halls. Now this is a pretty expansive space and you could easily spend at least 30 to 40 minutes in there just going through that. They also have a little gift shop in there, really cool stuff, but I am going to find Riley and Tyson because it's not dog friendly, and I want to catch up with them because we've got some big things things to go on the lookout for, and I think they probably went this way. As I found Riley and Tyson, I also found this, which is called the Hot Pot from Inslee Works. And this was from around the 1920s. This was sometimes called a slag ladle or a cinder pot. And you can see this thing is quite large and in charge here. But this is only one piece of the heavy equipment and large items that they have on display here right behind the visitor center. Now, what kind of machine is this though? What kind of huge thing does this do for us? Well, believe it or not, this guy right here is used for road aggregate. A lot of the things that you find at places like this have a lot of different values that you might not expect. And they're all tied in together. So with that, we're gonna go in this direction over here where Riley and Tyson are and start to get closer and closer to the Ironworks section. Now on property, they do have several different kinds of buildings, including a couple stores. I think they have some ice cream at a creamery here. So we might have to check all that out. But they have some various places that you can come and just hang out. Now while we're here, there's a lot of kiddos here enjoying this recreation area at the bottom of the hill. So we opted to come past where the kids were playing in the water and past the activity area, and we found the Fowler House. And this was actually built near West Blockton, Alabama in 1860, and it was used by Winston Stewart, a local contractor. And then Mr. and Mrs. Fowler occupied the house from 1928 until their death. And then it was restored as a county school, and it was a part of their learning center until 1978. This is really cool. One of the nice things about this particular area is that you can come out here and take a variety of different offshoots, and even though it might be a crowded day at the park, it's not terribly crowded, even with tons of people at the campground and also tons of families visiting on the day pass. A day pass is $5 and you pay that whenever you come in. I learned that if you want to book a site, they do have sites with both water and sewer, and they're reasonably priced considering that larger rigs can fit in here. So it's very, very cool way to come out and see something just a little bit different. And as we continue to adventure, I think you're going to see more of the history unfold, and I can't wait. After walking across, I found the Cane Creek School, and this is a huge building that's kind of divided in the middle by a big red door. Now all of these buildings, from what I was noticing, you can actually come here for special occasions that they have, and they'll have them opened up so that you can see some of the history, but also they allow you to rent many of these for your special occasions, which is kind of cool. So this is the Cane Creek School from 1923, and it was a successor to the first school building in Jefferson County in 1815. This building of 1923 actually served the residents of the Beltona area until the 1960s. Now this building was relocated from approximately 3 miles outside of the Warrior area. And as you can see, it's a huge building, so this was not a small undertaking to bring it here and put it on the property. All of the buildings that were relocated to this property had to come from somewhere, and they would painstakingly take them and put them onto trailers, and in some cases have to break them apart and reassemble them. And so it's fascinating to see how they were able to do that, but also what value that it brings to the average person coming out. Now, one fun fact, again, because we picked up the information, is that when this was originally built, it cost about almost $7,000 to do. And it was a schoolhouse that had a well, so they would pump their water up, and it was heated by a coal stove. So here you can see it from a distance again, and just it's fascinating to find out like how this served a community all the way up into the 60s using those methods before they were able to change over to the new school district, which provided things in a more efficient way using more modern plumbing and also more modern heat sources. Now earlier we were talking about the rental cabins, and this is a historic post office that's actually been converted into a cabin. Believe it or not, at one point in time when this was originally built. It was only $400 to build this structure. And this is where the post would be for all of the mail that would come through. But also, the post office was a social place. In these times, people would come here and get their news, and they would find out more about their community by coming to the post office or engaging with the postmaster. So what would your thoughts be on staying at a historic post office? I think it'd be pretty cool. It's one of those more interesting things that you could check off your bucket list. So we found this, and I think it says the furnace is this way. The map makes it appear like it could be that way, but there's also a path that way. A little confusing. So we're gonna take the low-lying path, which I think will be the easier path, and we're gonna hope that it gets us to where we need to go. We're not sure. That is one thing that is a little unclear, because that other one did look like it's also a path, but I think there's a sign up there saying authorized vehicles. So I think we made the right choice. So we're following this path, and Riley is freaking out about all the bugs, because we're in the south and it's humid and there's bugs. Those who are wondering, this is not ADA accessible through this region, at least. Let me tell you, this is beautiful. Look at all these cabins. This is so nice through here. And you can see these are all equipped with modern amenities like air conditioners. Very nice. For now, onward we go, up, up and away. So after walking up to this area, we found the quarry site from 1830 to 1863. From this point back to the high ridge, extending more than half a mile. This is where the original stones were quarried in 1800s. There were huge blocks of sandstone according to this. And something else that we just learned is that you can actually see some of the original drill holes still in the rock side facing us as we're walking down toward the furnace. But the other thing that I noticed is right across from this is one of the most gorgeous views I've seen in a bit. The water here is beautiful and it's just churning below us, and it's so pretty, and you can feel the wind coming off of the water, and it feels so much cooler in this region than the other parts of the park. This is beautiful. And just like that, we finally found it. Wow, that's all I can say. This is a huge building, and it's definitely more than any other building that I've seen of this kind at any other site. It's very well preserved. They've definitely put a lot of work into it, and it looks like a perfect place for us to dive into some history. They have a few signs down here, another building, and tons of space for us just to roam around. Okay, I happened upon Riley, and she is trying to be a steam engine.
Yes, steam engines are like wheels, and then we go around, right? And then we pump steam.
I don't think that's actually how it works. Maybe we should investigate more museums for you.
Yeah.
Maybe. Now this site has a few interesting facts about it. Not only the people who lived in this area, but also what this area actually did. And these flags that are indicated here are actually dedicated by the iron foundries and furnaces that contributed to the Confederacy. Now the reason why is because this was actually a Civil War site between 1861 and 1865. And here we learn a little bit more about that, as it is designated as a site on the Civil War Preservation and Trust National Discovery Trail. Now what part though did this play in the Civil War is the bigger question. Well, actually this was one of the leading producers of iron in the area, and it was fueling the Confederate firepower quite a bit. So naturally, that meant that the Union forces needed to come in to try to cut that one off because it was doing far too much good for the Confederacy. So they came in a series of raids and actually displaced over 500 individuals who actually lived in this area as a result of that, including many who served as slaves at that time. They torched all of the buildings that were attached, and the only thing that remained was a piece of this furnace because it was built of stone. So it kind of goes to show that places like this had a huge bearing on what was happening during the Civil War, not only for the industry of this area, but also for the war effort itself. And because of that, it became a stronghold, and the stronghold had to be toppled. And so it serves now as a reminder of the past so we can make better tomorrows as we come along to various Civil War sites, but also as we come here to learn about the history of the people from the area as we've done around the park. This small furnace structure actually serves as a designation of the national landmark, and it shows that it was a part of the mechanical mechanical engineering that changed the way that the country runs. Now, at one point, the building actually looked like this in 1865. You can see there are several outbuildings. There's also a building behind where the raw materials were stored in a warehouse. And then they had the steam engine room, which we were just standing in, where Riley was acting out being a steam engine. But they also had a main cast shed and then overhead charging bridges, all part of this property. Now, in addition to the main trail that you can go on to go see the furnace and some of the other places, there's a few other trails out here as well. One takes you to a cemetery and shows you the old iron road, and then another one takes you out to where the slave quarters were once located. We now have arrived at the plank road, and prior to the advent of railroads, plank or corduroy log roads were popular throughout the eastern United States. Now, these roads were a little bit different than your standard roads today. They were actually more like toll roads, and they would pave the way, so to speak, with these to go to various locations, and you would pay a small fee to be able to travel on them and not have to worry about all of the aches and pains of having the other kind of roads, which were not good, by the way. Now, Plank Road here at the park actually goes alongside some of the other homes, such as the Stewart home and the Kraft buildings. So whenever this park is opened up big, you can come through and see all sorts of really interesting things, listen to the water trickling on one side of the Plank Road and see the beautiful buildings on the other. Here at the Stewart house, for example, they have weaving and spinning. The Stewart house was a boyhood home of N.E. Stewart, an Alabama state representative. In 1877, this home was constructed. It just kind of goes to show that these homes came from a variety of different places, different people, and now they're serving a different function than they even started out being. And it's pretty fascinating to see that the craft village that they have here is alive and thriving. And one of these even reminds me of my base camp. It looks like it's still decked out for Christmas, which makes me oh so happy. Hey Riley.
Yeah.
What do you think of all of the craft village homes?
So cool. It's really cute to see like all the different houses, and then there's some signs that say like, oh, there's quilts here, there's weaving and yarn stuff here. Whew.
It's a pretty sticky day though today, isn't it?
It is pretty hot, but it feels good in the shade.
Absolutely. Okay guys, we made it back to the vans. This was a great stop today, only $5, and it was fabulous. We spent the whole afternoon here just walking around learning, and make sure you pick up one of not only the maps, but the brochures about history. It has some very fascinating facts that I am very excited about learning, and I think you will be too. Remember guys, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. You're here again? Have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, you're missing out on all my brain wrinkles. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Quack.